Next level. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is the City of Aspen City Council regular meeting for October 10th, 2023. That's a call to order. Could we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Guth.
Here.
Councillor Howenstein.
Here.
Councillor Rose.
Here.
Mayor Tory.
Here as well. With no scheduled public appearances on our agenda this evening, we'll move right to citizens' comments and petitions. This is an opportunity for any citizen to address council on issues not scheduled for a public hearing. We do ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. I will give you a sign when there is 3 minutes past. And these are for items that are not scheduled for public hearing. Are there members of the public that wish to address council this evening? Peter, if you'd like.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor and Council, and for your time. I'm Peter Fornell, and I always appreciate and respect your time. I'm going to make some comments tonight that are related to, but not specifically towards items that are on your consent calendar. I'll be general, not specific. First is the 505 fund. The 505 fund, I've coined it as a hangover from the Barry Crook regime. You know, it was a location that allowed the finance director to load funds that were overages from departments into a single fund to provide affordable housing only for City of Aspen employees. You know, I'm going to make an example for you here, and I'm going to maybe simplify it to the extent that I can. Let's say I made a development application with community development, and community development charged me $1 for that application. And at the end of the process, that application only cost 90 cents. Why am I not getting affordable housing mitigation credit equal to the 10 cents that I paid for, not the rest of the city or anyone else in the creation of that portion of that affordable housing? The fact that it's going where it is, frankly, disappoints me. I think it should be going to the entire public. Second to that, if you took $1.5 million from the 505 fund and you transfer that money over into the 150 fund, that $1.5 million, if you were borrowing money on a lending ratio of 10-to-1, gives you $15 million of borrowing power for projects that might be larger and more beneficial to the community. If you did that for the next 3 years and you had $1.5 million each year coming from that fund, that's another $50 million of money that you could be borrowing with those funds for a project like, for example, the Lumberyard. So I believe that those funds are not best spent in the method that they're being spent. And our inventory of real estate in the city of Aspen and surrounding the city of Aspen in the $1 or $2 million range is very small. If you're an employer and you aren't eligible for affordable housing, and we keep taking those properties out of the market, we're reducing the inventory of properties such as those for those people. I think it's important for you to remember. And so then thank you, Tori, Mr. Mayor. And the other thing that I have to say tonight is I think you need to let the dust settle on the affordable housing project at the Lumberyard. It looks to me like you've got plans to possibly spend more than another $1 million on change orders with a design architect on a project that we have neither the funding for or a partner with. I think that you could take your time and let's see how things go before we start hiring somebody to make changes and redesigns to that project that we don't know who's going to complete, or whether the person who comes in to be part of that project isn't going to need changes of their own. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter.
Other members of the public that wish to address council this evening? Tony?
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Tony Kronberg, and as I said, I just came from the Aspen Recreation Center, and it's just, the pool is just wonderful. Kids are out there ice skating, and hopefully one day we'll be able to add that outside swimming pool that we were supposed to get about 25 years ago. A couple quick things. First thing is, tonight you have on executive session review of the city manager, and usually this time of year, it's usually performance review tied in with a possible raise. I don't know what the function of the executive session is, but whatever it is, I'd like to say that Sarah is probably one of the best managers that I've ever come across. She's very organized and she gets things through, and she's definitely worth her weight in gold. So I just wanted to put that in there. I saw that on the agenda tonight. And then the second thing has to do with the Lumberyard. And I know a lot of people are really upset with it because they don't think there's enough housing out there. So I was I didn't know what the answer was about the maximum number, how you came to that. And then if you did have a private developer that came in and wanted to add more units, would that be a function of a PD amendment? And it would have to be done within the next 6 months before things are memorialized with the development agreement. So that can be done anytime, so to speak. If somebody wanted to raise the number, because,
Any PD has an amendment process, including this one,
okay.
right? The code, the land use code specifies an amendment process, and we would follow that process in the same manner as any other applicant.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
Well, I should qualify that, except that the council has required that any major amendment to that PD come before city council for their review, so they can be a final decision maker on those changes.
Okay.
That's the one slight change from the typical process.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that's what I've heard. What I've heard in town is it's just not enough, and that there's calls for Aspen to build more affordable housing because of the workforce up here, but there's really nowhere left unless you build in the parking lots at Hunter Creek, Truscott, Maroon. So I just wanted to put that out there, that that's what I've heard, is that it's just not enough. It's maybe you redesign so that you can put more units there. They don't have to be like the luxury kind of units, more like the workforce housing, like seasonal Burlingame. And then, as you know, I'm really disappointed with the traffic aspect of it, the transit part of it. So my next question is, if the aerial connection comes forward, which it will with a initiative petition, and it has to, one of the landing spots would be where one of the buildings is, Sarah, would that be the same process than a PD amendment to change things somewhat? Or to add it, I should say add it.
I think we have to understand more what your proposal is to be able to answer that, Tony. I'm sorry, that one is, you're asking me to do some analysis on, not just describe the process.
Where's your crystal ball? And then tonight you're approving the ordinance, the IQ ordinance for building ordinance. And is the Lumberyard project fall underneath this ordinance? Will you have to follow these guidelines? That's it. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Other members of the public comment this evening? Looking online as well? And last call for public comment this evening? All right, I'll bring it back to council table. That brings us to council members' comments. Does anybody care to start this evening?
Happy to.
Bill?
Thanks. I've got a list. Thanks for bearing with me. First one, I think a simple question. I'd like to check in on the status of remote HP, hybrid/remote HPC and P&Z meetings. I don't think I've seen anything in the budget yet specifically addressing that from the IT department or elsewhere, and I believe the majority of us were interested in expanding upon that.
So the direction of council is that you wanted to look at all of your boards and commissions and set a consistent expectation across them. So the council needs to have that discussion for us to develop a budget for it, and it has not been scheduled on your work session calendar at this point.
Could I, do we have support for specifically scheduling a work session on that topic?
Yes, for me.
Yeah, I'd like to see if we can find in the budget and then have staff to oversee the hybrid meetings. I know it's a difficult task, but I think the community could benefit from hybrid HPC and P&Z.
Great. I obviously am interested in scheduling that too, so. Thanks. Secondly, there are a couple of intersections that consistently concern me in Aspen, and those are, I mentioned these during our budget work session with engineering, but I want to reiterate it. I've been thinking about it a lot this week, and those are the corners of Durant and Aspen and Durant and Garmisch. And those have always been very confusing to me. I've had, as I'm trying to cross onto the path that runs next to Coke Park on my bike or walking, I've had buses nearly hit me. I would request that staff looks at signage and control upgrades and improvements to those two intersections. Anyone else share those concerns with me? These are the east end of Durant at Coke Park and then one block further west. Those are not four-way stop signs right now. They're
I'd love to get some information from engineering that I believe that would handle any of that.
Yeah, we'll provide an info-only memo so everybody has clarity of the current conditions.
'Cause I think we
There's a lot of
talked about it.
rationale around the bus routes that affect the controls decisions that have been made at those two locations.
great. Is that a good first step on those?
Yeah, information only from engineering would be great. Yeah, I do recall we talked about that recently, a couple of years, but there were some constraints around not moving forward with it, but yeah.
Yeah, those have scared me. Thanks. In our consent calendar tonight, which I'll talk about in more detail, but largely there's two items specific to the Lumberyard that will kick off what is proposed as $14.25 million of spending in the 2024 budget. Now that the entitlements are approved and behind us, I believe that staff's focus should, the staff that are assigned to this project should be 100% focused on the RFP process to secure the best possible private partner for our community. I don't believe that it's responsible for us right now to advance further design or phase 0 infrastructure work. And the ultimate reason, I have a lot of reasons, but the ultimate reason why I don't think that's the best move right now is because I don't think it will deliver a single unit one day sooner for our community. I predict that what will happen is if we rush to install the phase 0 work, the site will lay fallow until we identify a partner, which will take a lot of time and a lot of effort and probably the most significant partnership effort our community has ever undertaken. And so I would like to see our staff focused solely on that. And tangentially related to that, I would like to propose a new program, a pilot program for the city of Aspen. And rather than spend the $14.25 million in 2024 towards advancing the Lumberyard design and infrastructure work, I would like to set aside $5 million for a pilot program that would target two groups of APSHA owners. Those who would be downsizing, right-sizing from a larger unit to a smaller unit, provide a financial incentive for them to do so. And secondly, those who are retired and no longer part of our active workforce who may be interested in moving out of their APSHA-owned housing. The only criteria for the latter, I think, would be that they would no longer be eligible for reapplying for APSHA after that sale. And I think there's a lot of work to do and a lot of research to do on this concept, determining what the appropriate financial incentives for each participant might be. This would be completely voluntary on every person's behalf. There'd be no obligation to participate in this, and I would like it as a pilot program with no guarantee that this is something that would continue in the future. And of course, no guarantee of success. If we don't spend the money, it would remain in the 150 fund. My intentions here are to free up bedrooms and units nearly immediately for our community, far sooner than anything could possibly be delivered at the Lumberyard. And I believe that there are a lot of people in our community interested in taking advantage of both right-sizing and selling their units, but would be much more motivated to do so with a financial incentive on top of their APSHA sale price, their maximum APSHA sale price. So I'm looking to the four of you to see if I have support in having staff work on that program idea.
I think this fits into our goals of creating housing units and beds without development. I think that we also have been focused, we being the city council and APSHA, and I think the community concerned with utilization of the number of units that we have. What you've presented, Bill, I think has been talked in some form or another for quite some time. I think it's worthwhile to kick this around and to refine it. Anything we can do to gain bedrooms on a voluntary basis, even if it means, and we spoke about this over last week, if it means, I'll let you explain what the program is, but I would support sussing this out further in a work session so we could fully explore it.
Sure, Sam?
Yeah, I would support it too. To your first point, after entitling the Lumberyard, I would love to see the RFP process get started and getting a development partner in there before phase 0 even starts, because I think that's all beneficial to the project. And with that, if there's money that's opened up, I think the program that you speak of could be of huge benefit to the city, and opening up bedrooms at a cost that would be so much cheaper than building anything new, especially.
Thanks, Sam. John, you want to weigh in?
I'll hold off on Lumberyard comments until we are, until it's before us, but as far as the downsizing, you know, as Ward pointed out, we have been talking about that, and it's just been instituted. It's not getting off to as fast a start as we'd like, but I would support a work session on it, but steps already are being made towards many of the things you're alluding to. Thanks.
My comments here are that I think that there's some information that we should get first when it comes to this. I do not support the delay. If these are all tied together, I don't support the delay of the Lumberyard. I don't think that we need $5 million to be reallocated to a downsizing and a buyout of retirees in our affordable housing program. So I don't support a work session at this time. I think that there's information that can be garnered first before these conversations go further. So I don't agree with your basic premise that you started with about delaying the Lumberyard and diverting $5 million for this. First of all, we don't need to. We have money that we could use for that purpose if we wanted to. But secondly, I think there's information to gain before I would support a work session.
Sounds like we have 3, though, on
Yep.
the work session, so, thanks.
And if I could just clarify that this is under the scope of APSHA's responsibilities. You're a funding partner, but not the program designer. APSHA is responsible for right sizing because they are responsible for the regulations on the program. And so really the ownership is that APSHA board developing a program and then coming and requesting funds from you. You won't be able to act independent from the APSHA board in implementation.
Bill, maybe the right avenue is to get the APSHA board to do a work session on this stuff, because they already have, as John has pointed out, a right-sizing voluntary program. We've got one nibble, and the goal is to gain rooms. We've had some, a couple of people don't want to trade, but it doesn't gain any rooms, but maybe the APSHA is the right forum for this, since it would be an APSHA program.
Maybe yes, maybe no. I'm not sure that I want to support the boundaries of this program extending beyond the city limits. You know, I don't know why APSHA needs to be the driving force behind this. You know, at the very least, we could do a joint work session with them, but I'm not gonna, I don't think that we have to rely exclusively on them on this.
You know, when it comes to the downsizing program, what Bill's suggesting is just adding more money on top of perhaps what the differential between value of units is. And I think that's something that is a program that started with APSHA that should move concurrently with what APSHA is doing. As far as, again, the retirees, you know, I'm against this entire conversation where we completely, you know, utilize our affordable housing just for workforce, you know. Talk about class separation and those that are like okay by you to be here or not. And you're right, if there's voluntary people that are looking for perhaps a way out, that's great, but we can find that information out. You know, I got a lot of skepticism about this, but I don't think that us moving towards a work session is the appropriate action to get any action on both of these topics. So you got 3 that supported it up to now. I don't know if they want to reconsider, but.
I'd like to reconsider and have this move to the APSHA board, and at the next meeting, we've had discussions at the APSHA board about having work sessions about some of these things, and it is clearly an APSHA program, is APSHA housing. So I'd like to see us approach APSHA about this first, but I think I think what you've presented to me is a viable program and something that, as you say, it's totally voluntary. So you're not forcing anybody to do anything, but I would like to run it by APSHA before we bring it back to City Council.
Okay, but I think we should remember, if it's our dollars that are going towards this, this should probably be a City of Aspen-focused program and not a Pitkin County program, unless they're willing to participate alongside us.
And the IGA for APSHA is what provides the governance process for that conversation. It's pretty specific in this area about funding subsidies.
I want to keep the idea alive, but I'd like it to go to APSHA before.
All right, I am done with my comments. Thanks.
So it will proceed, you'll follow channels with Ward through APSHA?
I'll do that next and see where it goes from there.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Council comment?
No comments tonight, thanks.
Thank you. Ward?
Yeah, I'd like to comment about emergency preparedness. We had a meeting, a public meeting. It was well attended, and it again to me demonstrated the high degree of cooperation and communication and collaboration between our first responders up and down the valley, not only the valley but along the I-70 corridor and beyond. I had an opportunity to speak to Chief Ballantyne and Deputy Chief Anderson to get some more details on it. And we have 4 what are called pano AI cameras that are located high up at high elevation that can report plumes of smoke and are early detection. And there's a program that information goes to California. California decides to notify local regional firefighting regiments to assign assets to it. We have 3 small fixed wing air drops that can be circulating and refill at the airport in a matter of a minute and be on site in a matter of just a few minutes. We have some agreements, what's called the Mountain Area Mutual Aid, which is about 20 different agencies, including as far away as Steamboat and Breckenridge, that we all respond to an emergency for our community and for their communities. We work jointly to support each other in the mountain area. There are 3 more of these Pano AI cameras that are going to be activated but 4 of them now currently, and I think they're gonna be coming for some funding. And their target is for a structure fire to have somebody the first on site within 5.5 minutes. That's pretty good response time. That's what their target is. We still are running into problems with staffing, not only volunteers, but career firefighters. And so people that are interested in serving the community would like to volunteer as a fireman. There are some opportunities. We have 4 career firefighters, I think, on duty at all times. So also in 2018, there was a tabletop, Homeland Security did a tabletop exercise, and it again impressed upon me the high degree of cooperation and coordination up and down the valley of emergency first responders. I think we're very fortunate, probably the best prepared we possibly could be, and perhaps the best prepared of anybody in the state. And I think the SWAT call this last year was a good indication of how quickly we get mutual support all up and down the valley. So I think we can rest assured that our interests are being watched out after by the fire and emergency responders throughout the region.
Thanks, Ward. Sam, comments this evening?
Yeah, so a really difficult thing that's been weighing on me the last couple days is, as an American Jew and someone with a close connection to Israel, what's going on there has hit really close to home. I'm wearing the t-shirt of the school I used to teach at in Israel for the year that I lived there before I moved to Aspen. A lot of my friends are being called up into the reserves, and the atrocities that happen there should offend just about everyone on a human level, let alone just a Jewish level. And I don't want to get into it too much, but I did just want to thank all, especially the non-Jewish people that have reached out to me and other members of the Jewish community here to offer their sympathies and condolences for this really tough time that we're going through. And then moving on from that, the one council comment I had tonight was, I saw in our information packet we are allowing Main Street parking from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I was wondering among this council if, I think we were not necessarily open to overnight parking, but I was wondering if we could allow afternoon and evening parking after like 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. or start earlier at like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. That 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. was a little narrow, especially from the comments I received from a lot of the business owners who are very appreciative that it's coming back, but thought it was narrow in scope and could be better if there was consensus among council about that.
Now the time to discuss that, or we want to bring that back later? Is there something on there?
I would just say, I guess I'm open
That
to
was in
overnight parking.
info only, wasn't it?
That was in
Yeah.
info only. I'm open to overnight parking, but at the same time, I do think it should at least start earlier at like 7 a.m. and finish, I think after the rush hour goes through, I think it should be allowed till like 10 p.m. as well. I know that would help a lot of the residents on the street as well.
All right. Yeah, let's handle that now. It's not on our agenda for any other time. Do other council members have any input here?
I'd be supportive of 7 to 10 p.m., not supportive of overnight.
Okay. Ward?
So Bill, you're saying from
7
7 p.m. to 1 p.m.?
Nope, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then 7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Is that what you're proposing, the 7 a.m., Sam?
Yeah, I think an hour earlier would help a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works for me.
John, any input?
Works for me.
We'd like to address that, modify it a little bit if it's possible to make parking available from 7 to 1 p.m., 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., and again, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's our interest.
So I certainly, my one concern is, quite frankly, when we have snow and we start snow ops on Main Street as our primary route, that 10 PM is a little late. We're already out there usually by then. So I would just ask council to understand that there could be vehicles towed before 10 PM if it's necessary for snow removal operations.
I'm okay with that. I do think a lot of the policy we put in place does come down to personal responsibility of citizens to abide by certain conditions, especially when you live in a mountain town where it snows.
Right, it'll be something like more than 6 hours, 6 inches of snow in 24 hours. We're gonna end that evening parking because of our need to get to snow ops.
Yeah, that seems fair.
All right.
Sounds somewhat confusing. I might suggest as an alternate, if that's the concern, well, that is the concern clearly, maybe the 7 to 10 is not during certain months of the year. I don't want to be sitting here and have people come, you towed my car and the snow stake said it was 5 inches, not 6 inches. I don't want to be spending my time that way. So I think we need much simpler rules to follow and then enforce those rules.
You know, I think we've heard about this from staff. There's concerns on their sides. I think for simplicity's sake, we should start a program that is 7 to 1 p.m. and 7 to 10 p.m., 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Give it a shot, see what happens. We can change signage. We can alert the neighbors. It'll work out.
I'm fine with that too.
All right. Thanks. Any other comments this evening?
That's all, thank you.
Thank you. My comments this evening are only about the events that are taking place in Israel. I am in total agreement that what we're talking about is a travesty on both sides. Obviously, the latest attacks were initiated by one, not the other. But I don't know enough about the region, the history, and more. I just wanted to say that as a city and as a council, we are completely opposed to the use of violence for resolving conflict. And what we've seen over the last couple of days has just been absolute atrocity. So we've had some requests from certain members of our community that are looking for a way for Aspen to signify its support and solidarity with Israel. I think that this council should have some other conversations offline and talking with each other about any other actions that we do. But I do want to recognize that now in this meeting is that what I've seen over the last couple of days has just broken my heart. It seems to only be the beginning of something larger as well, which is not something to take lightly. Those are my comments for this evening. I don't see any agenda amendments, although we did add an executive session to the end that was added, I believe, yesterday. So that was not in the original packet. That's the only amendment I see. Correct? So we'll go to city manager's comments, please.
Sure, can I please just get a motion on the changes on Main Street? Because there's a change of direction from the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Would you like to?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that Main Street parking be from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Further discussion. This is not intended whatsoever to hinder the bus lane and the bus operations. We will find out if it truly does or doesn't. This is not intended to hinder snow removal. It is intended to be an aid and a benefit to both the businesses and the residents that are along Main Street. So I will be supportive of this at this time. Could we have a roll call vote for the motion, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes, thank you. Any other comments this evening?
Yeah, I have a couple other things for the council. First, I wanted to let you know that Burlingame 3 sales are going great. I see a lot of names on there of folks who work hard in our community when I'm signing those sales contracts on behalf of the organization. And I'm really excited for them to land into a spot that will be great for their stability and for their family's stability. One of the decisions I did recently make is that I have removed 5 Category 5 3-bedroom units from the lotteries. And we'll be coming back to you on October 30th for a discussion that there's a much higher demand for this type of unit at lower categories. And so I'd like to discuss with you potentially changing those. Remember how the lottery system works is that if there is no qualified you can't bid up in the rules right now that the council established. And so if there is not a Category 5 household that has the occupancy of 3 bedrooms, it would go to someone who's less than full occupancy. And so I think in your discussions, I would recommend you revisit your decision on that category assignment based upon what we've seen in the application pool. So we'll come back to you with specific recommendations and also what's the cost, the opportunity cost of making those changes.
And Sarah, did we, typically, I believe people are allowed to bid up 1 category, but the decision for BG3 was to not allow that?
Right, the direction from City Council was not to allow upbidding, given that the category ranges, particularly upbidding at the maximums of a new range, seem to be very difficult economic management, perhaps for families to fully understand the impact of that, was part of the rationale of council said we're not going to have upbidding on brand new product that's at maximum price from the start point.
Well, I, as you know, I have a lot of questions around kind of our categorization and our use of AMI and the structure of the program. So I need more information to fully know what you know. But I just asked because I wanted council members to be aware that, you know, that was a change that we made on this project. Normally, we do allow that upbidding. Anyway.
Right, there's a real specific conversation on cost burden of the household that led council to not allow upbidding in this particular case. But I can tell, but I want you to see the demand numbers at Category 3 and 4 for this type of unit. There's people who need these units, absolutely. I don't know that we need to charge them the Category 5 rate necessarily with your fund health.
Well, I appreciate that. And I would love to see some of those numbers and to know more, because I just don't know as much as you know about this specifics.
Yep, we'll come back on October 30th.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for keeping your finger on the pulse of this. I think the demand for those Category 3, Category 5 3 bedrooms is pretty low, and the demand in the lower categories is high. So thank you for that, and I support reallocating those to a different category.
Right sizing ahead of time.
Any other questions or comments on that before I move on? Okay. I did want to let you know that last week, 2 of our emergency personnel were called up for activation in a regional incident command team for an incident that happened in I believe it was northwestern Colorado. So recall how this system works is when the county's system cannot obtain all of the resources necessary, they put a request into the state. The state then comes back and says, you, and you, we need you to report here. And there's a reimbursement process to deal with all the funds of it. But so we did have 2 individuals, 2 of our trained incident commanders and public information folks who are specialized in that area as liaisons report to that incident to assist the incident commander. This particular incident, fortunately, was not an immediate threat on anyone's personal health or safety or property. However, it did have to do with a large-scale incident of improper burial or untimely burial. And so there's a lot of logistics works and matching and to ensure families had clarity around what was going on versus what happened with the vendor they had contracted with. Any questions on that? So just again, I think, the level of expertise we have in-house, we're really fortunate in this arena. Our biggest issue will be just the same for us. If we have an emergency here, is the limited resources, personnel resources in the valley. We will likely have to also call in from the state for them to send additional resources to us in a really major event.
Was this that incident in Saguache County?
Yes. I don't remember where that's at.
Moffett,
Okay.
the town?
Okay. And then the last item is Jim, just before you jump into the consent agenda, Jim's just gonna jump in on some housekeeping matters for clarification of the council. And so I just ask that when we get to that moment, if you would please give him an opportunity to provide that direction to you.
Thank you. This is an opportunity for brief board reports. Are there any board reports for this evening?
We did have a
Upshot.
CCLC meeting, and had members from the, Bill Lynn from the police department gave a briefing on some of the people hanging out in Connor Park, and it was interesting that although people are hanging out there and they may be indeed homeless, there is no law prohibiting people from hanging out in a public space. And as amazing as it was to me, there is no Colorado law against public intoxication. There is a law against open container, but as long as people are hanging out and not harassing, it's allowed. And we at CCLC, the members have been assigned block captains to stay in touch with the businesses in town, to have personal liaisons with them, and so that when there are issues that there's somebody on CCLC that they can reach out to. Saturday market concluded this last Saturday. It was a big success, and there were suggestions that perhaps next year that there be some spots for children-centric booths. There was a meeting of APSHA. We discussed, we had the annual election of officers, and Carson Schmitz was reelected as the chair. John Ward was reelected as the co-chair, or the, what's it called, the vice chair?
Yeah.
And there is a position for treasurer, and evidently the duty for treasurer doesn't include very much, if anything at all, so they were gracious enough to elect me as the treasurer of the APSHA board, but I don't think I have to do anything, so rest assured. We also went through the Essential Home Repair Pilot Program, and we heard from a couple of families that want to basically switch or swap housing units that are both in the APSHA program. It doesn't include gaining any rooms, but it gives more rooms to one family and more right sizing to the other. And in the current rules as they stand for the pilot program, it doesn't fit in. But the board was really interested in working with the families to allow them to right size, although it doesn't gain any units. So we're going to be working with those families to try to get them in more appropriate housing sizes. That's it.
Thanks, Ward. John?
Yeah, the APSHA meeting was also my only board meeting, and that's what I wrote down, that we were, despite the fact that they were slightly outside the parameters of the guidelines, we were going to attempt to, as quickly as possible, find a way to right size for these particular people, because they really they embodied the spirit of what we're trying to do.
These are 2 ownership units in the same complex or different complexes?
Complexes.
Great. Well, I hope you can work a resolve there. That'd be great. And board updates. Yes, I've got board meetings this week. Thursday is both RAFTA as well as Board of Health. Nothing to report from past meetings. Okay. Yep. Oh, go right ahead. Yes. Yes.
All right, just a quick update from the last time we met. The council received a update presentation on the airport itself. At the last Airport Advisory Board meeting, there was a lot of focus in understanding the grant assurance liabilities that the current airport has to the VI.A, as well as some discussion of some infrastructure challenges out there. Most notably, if you, anyone who works in pavement management knows is that when you've got a great top to your runway, to your asphalt samples, but you have nothing but crumble at the bottom, and I don't mean like proper base, but crumble, you have a really big problem. You've either had water moving around or something that's called a base failure. And so this is going to be a pretty big issue for our community, the need to address that failing pavement. Obviously, it comes into that is where's the runway and how wide is it as part of that conversation with the airport layout plan. The one other thing that we talked a bit about at our last meeting was some of the things around sustainability at the airport. So both terminal, what are the things that that are local control versus those things that are not local control, what may or may not be able to be required of a fixed base operator to green their infrastructure. We continue to spend time around like aviation fuels. And then lastly, there still continues to be this general aviation conversation about wanting to have the information from flight plans about souls on board. And quite frankly, I'm not seeing that being something that the private operators or general aviation will voluntarily submit to the fixed base operator to report and aggregate back to the community. But I want you to know that that conversation is continuing.
Sarah, one question for clarification on that. At that meeting, they talked about the pavement issue being of concern, and certainly of concern to not repeat whatever's, or to mitigate whatever's causing the issue currently, but it's not an imminent safety concern today, right?
I would rate it kind of like the bridge. You're going to spend a lot more money and time on maintenance and less use of it to meet your community needs. Until the point it has a complete failure. So we already see payload reductions in the summer, so total weight reductions in the summer for that runway, and it being able to sustain the landing force and takeoff needs based upon a lot of conditions, not just the pavement, a lot of environmental conditions that affect flight planning. But I would say is that, you know, the next, for example, how this is happening, it used to be a 2-week shutdown for the airport. For runway work. This coming year, it's 3, and we're being forecasted out for it to be longer and longer with these temporary repairs, which ultimately will then also fail.
To the consent calendar? Can't hear you quite yet. Nope.
Is he downstairs?
Can read your lips, but.
American Sign Language, please.
Okay, I'm going to cover this for Jim. In the meantime, we drew straws of who was going to do this, but I figured he found a way to have me do it. The two things on the consent agenda for you tonight. Oh, he's trying. He's trying. We cannot hear you,
That's right, Jim. We're number 1.
The first thing we just would like to enter into the record on Resolution 133, Series of 2022. There's just an exhibit missing from your packet about a sample menu for that lease. For the restaurant space out at the golf course. So this is that attachment that should be there. The second item is that Resolution 128 of Series of 2023 needs a little extra time for legal review, and so it has been,
Tony, do you mind? Would you?
no, actually, Scott, would you please go address and verify what's happening with the doors?
Well, that's Alan, and he just wants to get in the building, and maybe the doors
Yeah,
aren't.
we want to confirm that there's not an access issue. That's why I want the staff
yeah,
member
got it.
responsible for access to check it. Okay. And then, again, back on Resolution 128, Series of 2023, you requested to review this resolution in conjunction with the construction contract for the project. And legal has just asked to have a little bit more time to work out a few issues on that contract. So we're requesting you do not include that in any motion, and that you have a separate motion for continuation to October 30th. I hope I did.
128, right?
Yes, just 128.
Ward, will you make that motion now?
I move that we continue Resolution 128, Series 2023 to October 30th, 2023.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Can we have a roll call vote for the continuation of resolution number 128?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes.
Looks good.
All right, with that, then we can continue on with our consent calendar. Please recognize that item 6, resolution 128, is no longer a part of the consent calendar. Are there other items that people wish to pull for discussion?
Yes, please. 83, 144, 146, 147.
Right. Any others?
One left.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and pull it though. 145, please.
You left 133 alone. Or two left.
I'm just gonna make comments and not pull it.
Menu looks good.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get it started with resolution number 83. And this is Lumberyard related, as is
146.
46.
I'm fine lumping those together if others are.
Somewhat, if we can, we will. If you'd introduce yourself for the record, that'd be great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris Everson, Affordable Housing Development Project Manager with the City of Aspen.
And before Bill asks you his questions, would you just please talk to us briefly about Resolution 83? What is the significance of the contract for construction manager as advisor at this time?
The contract for construction manager as advisor will provide the capital asset department with additional project management staff to manage the work that is also being done under requested resolution number 146. So in your memo, there is a description of the work tracks that we need to embark on. And that does relate to the 6-month clock that we have, which is now ticking as a result of the approval of the entitlements to record the plan development. Whether or not we do anything else, we do have to satisfy that condition as the applicant. Our department, the project managers, are entirely consumed right now with delivering Burlingame Ranch Phase 3. This contract with resolution number 83 is for just under $60,000 to provide the project management between now and the end of the year to manage the work that we're contemplating under resolution number 146.
Thank you. Bill?
Thanks. Reiterate what I said during my comments earlier is I would really prefer to have our staff, Chris and his team, focused on the RFP process. Assuming we have the ability and power to do so, I would have no problem extending the 6-month deadline on recordation of the plat map. But I think that the sole focus should be RFP work, interviewing partners, qualifying partners, supporting partners in their preparation of their RFP responses. And I don't want to continue with the design work on this. I don't want to do the demolition work of the existing structure. I want us focused on identifying a good long-term partner that will take us through all 4 phases of this project and optimistically do all 4 phases of this project simultaneously rather than string this out over 15 years or more. So my goal is to keep everyone focused 100% on the public-private partnership aspect of this. And if there are specific tasks to support that process, I would support those being parsed out separately. But from my understanding, the majority of these are to advance design and advance phase 0 work. And that's why I can't support those right now.
Can you just speak a little bit about that? How can those run concurrently if they could at all? An RFP process at this time, you know, trying to fit pieces of a puzzle together here. You know, this is just Resolution 83 for Construction Manager Advisor, but then we have some design services in 146. And the counselor's concern is about looking for partnership at this time. How do these 3 items work together, or could they, or don't they?
So everything we're discussing here, as well as everything we'll be discussing in 6 days at the budget work session, is related to saving as much time as we possibly can. By our analysis, and we're still working on recovering from the loss of time experienced with the extended entitlements process, but by our estimation, if we wait further to bring on a private developer partner and involve them in the phase 0 work, you will lose at least another year on the project, possibly 2, because once you select a partner, you do not immediately get to work. Once you select a partner, you have to then put a lot of agreements in place, and it takes time to put those agreements in place, and Jim's done that with me, and he knows that it takes time. We have had discussions with numerous developers during the entitlements approval process, as well as since. Sarah and I with at least one partnership group from Aspen, myself with another partnership group from Snowmass, Randy and I with 2 separate market rate and affordable developers, as well as myself and Randy having discussions with one of the largest developers of affordable housing in the country. They talked repeatedly about certainty and de-risking the project. The action that you've taken already to approve the entitlements is one of the key elements that they identify in de-risking the project. The other is putting the infrastructure in place. We can wait. You can wait a year, maybe more, to get a developer on board to work on that. We're talking about trying to do 2 things at one time: getting the infrastructure design underway, getting to those building permit applications, getting that infrastructure in process, and be selecting and contracting and forming agreements with a developer partner at the same time. If you don't want to do those things at the same time, you'll have to do them in series, and that's going to cost you time.
Thanks, Chris. Sam?
I just wanted to ask real quick, so in your perfect world, as far as the piecing the puzzle together, this would go through, phase 0 would be done, and then the RFP process would take place?
No, sir.
Okay.
We would start the RFP process first part of next year, while at the same time we're applying for building permits. And so that we'll be selecting a developer partner during the time that the infrastructure is being built. Once we select a development partner, we still have work to do to put agreements in place with them, and that takes time as well.
Would a development partner not want to be part of phase 0? Would they not benefit from being part of the phase? And then before you answer that, you know, coming into this, you know, all the history of it, in a perfect world to me, you'd start with an RFP and then you'd do everything else. And so it's like interesting to like entitle it, do phase 0, and then do an RFP concurrently. So I just want to hear more reason why the RFP shouldn't be at like the forefront of this process, and why phase 0 needs to be done like right now?
Because we can be accomplishing work towards finishing Phase 0 while at the same time selecting a developer partner and forming the agreements that we need to put in place to get the development partner working.
I'll just add to that is that you're setting conditions, right? You've already set in entitlements where the roads are gonna go, where the easements are, where the infrastructure needs to be placed. It doesn't prevent that other portions of the site could come in for a PD amendment, but you have put a stake in the ground from the PD process of saying where those key pieces of infrastructure need to go. For example, getting the access addressed for Mountain Rescue as part of Phase 0 work, getting those things moving ahead now so that they are known conditions for any parties coming in later. Certainly, the council asked repeatedly for us to move the timeline up on this project in multiple budget cycles. These are the things that have to happen to do that. And as you know from our presentations, that the longer you wait, the more it will cost.
I also just wonder, the longer we wait, the more we get a development partner involved, and it's always been in my head that the development partner would help with the cost rather than us doing the work as the developer.
And they will be. They will be. They will be part of the capital stack, and they're required to bring that. However, you know, in the many sites I've developed for both retail and Class A office space and so on, setting conditions with the public infrastructure, it increases your clarity. So this uncertainty piece is removed. And secondly, it gives you the opportunity to seek certain funding opportunities by having what's called being site ready. And so the lack of the infrastructure not being in means the site is not site ready to take on that vertical construction.
Okay. I guess the last thing in my head is just wondering if we lose out on some creativity from some development partners during the IRP process, because we start doing things that we entitled, but I only felt like I entitled the project because I want the project to happen, but I really want the creativity from the RFP partner to create this project in the best possible way.
And we'll evaluate that in their RFQ responses. So if you look on page 2 of the menu, because the menu's right next to me. Page 2 of the memo, we have there some clarity about what the work plan is in this area from now through the end of first quarter. And so the RFQ in the partnership work is in there, but it includes getting this demo permit started, getting it in, getting this infrastructure, dealing with the final arrangements with CDOT that need to be made, that are paperwork things that also need to happen in the meantime. So I just, I think the council's asking me to figure out how to do this affordably as possible. We're trying to do that, and this is really a philosophy conversation amongst the council. So I'm going to step back and have staff, as staff steps back, you all need to decide. There's not a perfect path forward in any construction project. And you'll need to weigh the pros and cons of the timing of these different elements. What I will say is we absolutely need support for finishing up our obligations for the development agreement and the PD work that finishes out entitlements. And whether you choose to remove from the scope of work additional things, just weigh the consequences of that not happening, and if you think the benefits are greater than those consequences.
Chris, last one more. Chris, in your discussions with development partners, is there expectation do Phase 0 and then we'll get involved?
They don't want to be involved in the work related to CDOT. They don't want to be involved in the work related to the underpass. They don't want to be involved in the work related to the adjacency with Mountain Rescue. They want all the roads put in place and all of the utilities put in place so that they have certainty of where their developable site is. They want to be able to come in and start developing the vertical development right away with certainty. Over and over, we hear this. So I don't know where the information's coming from to suggest that we should do it otherwise, but this is what we're hearing over and over, almost re-verifying our prior recommendation, which was based on similar conversations in the past. Now, any suggestion that you don't have the funds, we're projecting that you're going to have $67 million in the 150 Housing Fund at the end of this year. So that's well more than what we're asking for in the $14,250,000 to do the Phase 0 starting next year.
Copy. Thank you.
Can I
Thanks, Sam.
jump in with one additional one, unless Ward wants to go first?
What? Yeah, I shared with council my thoughts and concerns on this. I think the last few months that we worked on the entitlements, we were looking for as much flexibility as possible and removing as much uncertainty as possible. I think that the layout in entitlements removes that uncertainty. And I think that there was I feel as though there was agreement or a consensus that we're looking for partners. We're looking for a private partner to do the development. We were presented with different financing models, how much it's gonna cost if it's phased, how much it's gonna cost if it's done in short order. And it costs the community a lot less if we can do it all at once. And I hear what you're saying, Chris, is that people want certainty about the infrastructure. We have the entitlements, we know what the layout, what the traffic flow is, what the plan is. And I think we've put us at a place where we could invite a partner from the beginning at this point to do all from phase 0 through phase 3. I don't want to do anything that's going to delay the finalizing of Ordinance 10, the entitlements. I want that to proceed with all due speed. And I agree with Sarah that we've had this discussion for years about getting this project completed as soon as possible and as producing a product that is going to be worthy of the people in our community that serve our community and keep the economy sustainable. And we've had great emphasis on energy efficiency. So all of the work we've done up till now, about 3 years worth of work, have been following that goal. I'm just afraid or concerned that if we proceed, and Cushing Terrell's been a wonderful partner, and I hold them in the highest regard. And if we were to issue an RFP process to do phase 0 through phase 3, I don't know how long it's going to delay it. You're saying it's going to delay it at least a year, and Bill's saying that it's not going to delay it at all. So nobody at this table has done a $400 million 277 unit development. So the uncertainty is certainly on this side of the table. I think we've removed a lot of the uncertainty from the developer's standpoint. So I want to get this done as quickly as possible. If we can get somebody to do all the phases at once, if we can work that out, I think it's going to be a lot less money to the community. So those are my concerns. And are we going to do this? How much time are we going to lose if we do an RFP for all 4 phases? And Chris, I hear you saying that we're going to, what you're proposing and what this is suggesting is that phase 0 be done. And while phase 0 is being completed, that an RFP for phases 1, 2, and 3 would be completed and issued. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's what we're recommending. And if you did want to first bring on a developer partner and then start phase 0, we think you're going to lose at least a year, possibly 2.
I don't know how that's, I don't know what the justification for losing the 1 or 2 years is.
So we have to do a certain amount of work to record the plan development anyway, right? So before we can go out with a solicitation, an RFQ plus, an RFP, whatever you want to call it, we have to, get pretty far down the road of recording this plan development so that we're saying this is what we're asking for, right? Second of all, like I said, that solicitation is going to take some time for us to develop. We've mentioned that we already have our hands full completing Burlingame. So we'll need some time to work on the solicitation itself. We need to put the solicitation out there for some period of time. Do you want to put it out there for 2 months and expect developers to respond in 2 months? Do you want to put it out for maybe 6 months and see if we can get more traction? There's a question about how long we leave it out there. It's going to take us some time to, it's going to take them some time to develop their proposals, so we need to give them some time to work on this. It's going to take us some time to evaluate those proposals and bring to you a recommendation, and we may even want to somehow show you more than we usually do, since this is such an important project. That process alone is going to take us probably into next spring, maybe even into early next summer. When we do select a developer, again, we have to start the process of putting agreements in place. And as Jim has experienced before with us, I don't know if anyone has put in place these types of agreements before. They're the types of agreements where there's like 8 to 10 attorneys on the phone at one time, hashing out many, many different agreements toward a closing. We had some 40 different recorded documents the last time we did this. So those agreements will take some time to develop. Sometimes it takes a few months. Sometimes it can take up to a year to get to a closing before the developer can start. All of that could be in process while we're doing Phase 0.
And all the work for Cushing Terrell is for Phase 0 only?
No, no. Only 2 parts of what is requested for Cushing Terrell is related to construction.
In construction, you're talking about Phase 0?
Yes.
And Sarah, do you, I thought I saw you shaking your head that Cushing Terrell was limited to Phase 0 construction.
Yeah, I was opposing your statement. If you look on page 2, also on page 2 of the memo, it lists out the development services agreement support for $35,000, access and infrastructure design for $645,500, and it goes on with the breakdown of each one of those services that we're requesting. So it is certainly more than design work.
There.
And that's where we came to the 1.1, I'm going to just say 1.15.
Down a little bit lower.
Yeah. Yeah, that's in the Resolution 146 memo on page 2, 2/3 of the way down. There's a list with figures related to the parts. 7B and 7C are related to construction readiness. Everything else is needed to put the plan development in place.
John, further comments?
I did have questions about 83 and 146. Most of those questions were I really appreciated Chris' responses to the questions, and I think we should go forward with this. I don't want to risk losing a year or 2.
Thanks. Bill, did you want to follow up?
Yes, please. Chris, again, my hope is that we get this RFP process right. I think that this project is not feasible without the right development partner. You told us that your team is tied up finishing out BG3 right now. Can you explain sort of the structure of the team that you're putting together and how you're going to accomplish the RFP process, what support resources you're going to need, more specific on the timing of when it's going to be issued? Again, I ask this because I want to get it right, and I know it's the biggest public-private partnership this city will have ever undertaken. I don't know how that relates to your experience prior to the city of Aspen, but certainly in your time in the city of Aspen, this is the largest, so I think we got to get it right.
We've not started drafting the solicitation yet. We have had discussions with private developers. Many of those developers, well, many of those conversations center around what should we be asking for in order to enable you to best do your job. We have some recommendations already from those folks. We also have prior public-private partnership solicitations that we've drafted and had success with. So we will pull together those resources, cross-reference those, amalgamate those into a solicitation. Right now, I'm envisioning that to be a base bid that's based on what gets recorded in the plan development, plus any alternate that you see fit within the flexibility that's allowed, and possibly any alternates that you think might make sense for a plan development modification. So we can provide them with the opportunity to propose it different ways to us. The Phase 0 infrastructure construction is one way that we can get the timeline back on track. We can go in whatever direction you folks want to go in. We're just trying to make the most efficient recommendation that we can.
Are there consultants that specialize in helping government entities prepare RFPs for public-private partnerships?
Sure.
Why are we not proposing engaging one of those now?
We haven't made that decision, quite frankly. You know, you remember, we're not talking just about one individual's experience. You have my 25 years of experience of being on the government side of it. You have our Public Works Director who has developed thousands of units here in Colorado and has been on the development side, developer side of many of those agreements. You have, I think there's maybe some discrediting of the amount of expertise that you have in your staff to start this process. And we'll absolutely use third parties. This is an example why we're asking for the owner's rep. Here, it's a recommendation of the Citizens Advisory Budget Task Force, whatever exactly the title is, Citizens Budget Advisory Task Force. Yes, that's correct. And so we're following what the community has felt as best practice here. And I'm struggling a little bit with this notion. The direction we've been given is to advance this project as quickly as we can. I don't think really there's any more staff engagement for this. This is a decision the 5 of you need to come together on. Make it and let us know where we're going.
Citizen Budget Task Force.
All right, to be clear, I did not question anyone's experience. Those words did not come out of my mouth or question your motivations or qualifications. So those were not my words. I am questioning how we're going to get the public-private partnership right from the beginning and from the right moment, and be able to put the resources towards it, the staff, the HR resources towards it, that we need to get it right. I think that advancing the Phase 0 work and this additional design work will distract our staff from being able to get it right. We don't have an enormous team that's assigned to this project. We are going to need additional resources, and that's why I believe that if we start this work now, we're just going to end up with a point where the site lays fallow later while our public-private partnership gets finalized, and while that partner likely asks for amendments to the PUD, which we know will be a lengthy process. I don't envision any scenario where our private partner comes in and does not make a request for an amendment to the PUD. That's my personal gut feeling. So I don't think there's a rush on this. I think that at any point in time, at some point in time, there's a period of stall, whether that's now or later. And I think from a cost efficiency standpoint, having the stall happen now versus after we mobilize and start construction is more responsible.
Just real quickly to respond to that, Bill, I think that a stall now does mean a stall. The process that we are trying to embark on does not guarantee a stall. So, those are a little bit different.
Well, we disagree there.
In particularly at CML, a breakout session that I attended, that it was really stressed that the infrastructure entitlements be in place before public-private partnerships were attracted to a project. And the demolition and all the environmental, the added work that staff doesn't have the expertise for is Cushing-Terrell. And so that, I have real concerns. I don't want to get too far down this, but if Chris assures me that as this is proceeding, I do not want to delay the entitlements, to finish the entitlements. And if Cushing-Terrell and getting the demolition and the Phase 0 completed, and while that's going on, to work on RFQ, RFPs for the vertical construction phases. I think my concerns are still there, but Chris, I think you've addressed them, and laid some of those to rest.
Chris, on item 83, the CMA, I see a figure for 2023. Are there any cost estimates for this contract for 2024?
We're going to revisit this for 2024. We may have some staff available to help with this in 2024, once we get Burlingame 3 nearly completed. And so we have only contemplated hiring dynamic program management through the end of the year, with the understanding that we're going to look forward into next year and see what we need as far as resources go. We do think we are going to need some help, whether it's roughly this $20,000 a month, not sure yet.
Okay, so item 83 is approval of $58,763 through the end of the year. The other contract is about 1.15 for the Cushing-Terrell design services, which are not building design, which are not project design, which are preliminary design work. Is that correct?
Yeah, we only have schematic designs to this point.
Thanks. All right, any other council questions on these two items?
Yeah, question for Bill as far as, could you help me with understand why it wouldn't delay it by a year or two? In my mind, I'm thinking about it might delay a year or two, but then move faster because we delayed it. It's like a move slow to move fast, but do you have anything to say as far as like why you don't think it would delay?
Sure. I put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Like I just said a moment ago, I don't foresee a situation where our development partner does not ask for some amendment to the PUD. That's going to be a long process. Given that these entitlements just took 3 years, that amendment could take a year or more. Vertical construction's not gonna start until that's worked out. I'm not opposed to the city self-performing some or all of the Phase 0 work, but I need to get comfortable that we have a partner that's gonna be able to roll right into the back end, or at least close to the back end of that work, before I can get behind that. So for me, I just think we're gonna rush to do Phase 0, we're gonna get the work done, but the time that people actually mobilize to do this work, it's not that much work on site. I mean, could be 6 months of work in the private sector at least. I just think that there's gonna be a long stall period between the end of Phase 0 site work and the start of any vertical work.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think for me, I really am adamant about the whole RFP, RFQ process as well. I don't like the idea of a delay, but at the same time, if it was my system and I was putting this in place, I would have done RFP from the beginning. I know that's not how things necessarily work in government and how you do construction, but I really want that development partner by our side from Phase 0 on. And it's fine if I don't have a majority of that, but that's just how I feel about the RFP process.
It's cool. What you're hearing from our team is that that is not what you're gonna get from the private sector that you're looking to partner with, that they're not interested. Let me put it in another way. You get the foundation built, then they can come in. They will get return sooner than if they have to do 2 years of basic construction on infrastructure. But It's all good. I'm just sharing my opinion. I appreciate what you said. We're going to move on. We will take these out. If you guys want to vote separately on them, that's fine for us. That answers questions. Thank you so much, Chris. That answers questions around resolution number 146 and resolution number 83. The next one that was to be pulled was 144.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. I have a pay-by-phone professional services agreement. Somebody wanted to pull 144?
Yes,
Thank you.
Good evening, Council.
Hello.
I'm Debbie Zoe, the Programs Manager for Parking.
Thank you. Bill?
Thanks, Debbie. So if I'm understanding this correctly, the past year's full year expense for pay-by-phone was $75,000, approximately $75,000. And this new contract is $125,000.
We won't necessarily have to pay that much. It's kind of hard to tell for sure how much. It depends on how many transactions we
Is it
get,
per
but we
use?
see it growing and growing.
Have we attempted to negotiate this contract with the vendor? Or have we just taken what they've offered us?
They have been a vendor for, it says 8 years, but it's more like 20 years. And they haven't raised the price until now. So it's pretty much an industry standard, this price.
Thanks, Debbie. Could you please answer my question, though?
Okay. Did we negotiate?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
So where did they, what was the cap originally proposed by them versus where you ended up?
Well, the original was 35, and they wanted 40, and we said, okay, we'll stay at 35, but they wanted 40.
So your alternative, council, is to, if you want to change vendors or only go back to cash payments or invest in the infrastructure to add credit card payments to residential parking zones, things of that nature, that the direction had been to phase out a lot of that technology, because this operating cost is more affordable than the ongoing capital cost of those on-site payment systems, having a mobile payment system. The reality is if we don't want the 40 cents, we can certainly decline this offer and go out to the market and then have that, be prepared for that disruption of transitioning to another vendor.
Thank you for that explanation. I actually think it's a good system. I'm not suggesting that it's not, and I'm certainly not pitching that we should change it again. You know, in my personal experience, it's better than the VI.D park, which I think until recently was a duplicative effort. What I am suggesting is, why don't we ask them for a lower threshold total cap? You know, I don't think they want to lose our business. I think it's a significant amount of business for them. They've been a longtime partner. I'm just suggesting that we negotiate a little stronger.
Thanks.
Thank you. I was just going to put this again back to the
Back to us,
council. We're talking
yeah.
about $50,000 here.
Thank you.
This is a threshold for me that I trust staff to negotiate, and I trust you that you've done the best you can. And the cost of changing vendors and redoing it, to me, is not worth sending this back.
Thanks, Ward. Sam, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'd just say, I think Bill's comments are very valid, but I would say for the next negotiation, maybe understand where he is coming from, and maybe there's something that can be done, but for this one, I feel fine.
Trying to do the percentages in my head. What would a 35 or a 40 cent charge be on an $8 residential pass?
So again, it's 40 cents per transaction. And
Right.
quite frankly, you can raise your fees if you're concerned about the $50,000 to cover it.
Yeah, that's not where I'm asking. I'm just wondering what the percentage cost is as it relates to like credit card fees. Anyway, any other questions? Any other information wanted on this item? Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I pulled Resolution 145. Austin, you don't even need to come up. I just wanted to share that looking at the design again, I was very hopeful that we'd have the ability for possible indooring of a tennis court and a couple of pickleball courts at this location. And it doesn't look like the design is going to allow that to be something that happens. I just wanted to share with you, again, that's my sentiment. I think this is an opportunity for indoor recreation during the winter months for our community, something that's been talked about for a long time, and the current design does not allow for that. So I'm not going to hold it up or ask for redesign, but I think that should have been taken into account.
Well, I'm interested in that. How much work would need to be done to?
Sorry, never mind, you do have to come up.
I didn't realize that. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'd be fun to have that in the winter, change of pace.
Thanks, Mayor Tory, council
Yeah, you're
members.
welcome.
Austin Weiss, Parks and Rec Director, and with me I have our project manager, Mike Tunte, and we're happy to answer any questions you have. The indoor, so with this particular site, it is problematic. Not only in regards to the existing covenants, but in order to maximize the number of pickleball courts or tennis courts, we basically shoehorned it into a very difficult space. And to do an indoor structure would truly have to be a building versus a bubble in that location. You couldn't get the number of courts that we're aiming for in a traditional bubble sort of scenario. The bubbles themselves are very problematic, especially with energy consumption. And you're basically heating the great outdoors to achieve that, unless you go to an actual building, a year-round structure. So, Mike, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think you summarized it well, Austin. It is a really constrained site, and what we heard from the community feedback was to really put forth a proposal that maximized the amount of court space. Moving to a structured system really implies taking what is currently sort of a knitted together site with, there are courts that slide around trees in different directions, and making it more of a rectangle that lends itself to be enclosed, which is what you would typically see. And there would be a significant loss of court space to do that. In addition to the heating, oftentimes doing indoor enclosed structures, even if they're tensile, even if it's a fabric structure, you cut off enough of natural light that you end up having to have artificial lighting to supplement even during daytime use. So there are energy loading concerns. It is a scenic corridor, and I think the visual impacts of a structure there are not to be underestimated. I think it would open itself to significant scrutiny.
So does everything we do.
Have there been any schematics done on a solution that could be either partially or fully bubbled?
The schematics that were developed in conjunction with the community feedback did not focus on enclosing it. What we heard loud and clear was the desire to have open air pickleball and tennis, not an enclosed structure. That did not surface during the public outreach.
Got it. I think it's late in the game, and you're intending to start construction on this in '24, right? I wouldn't want to hold up construction on it, but Austin, as you know, I have a friend who's interested in exploring these types of options at Iceland, at least for the field sports. And I wish we could have contemplated it a little bit more earlier in the process for this facility too.
Any other questions? No. Thanks. Like I said, I didn't mean for you to come up, but.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a lost opportunity that'll last forever, but.
Also awesome that we're getting.
I say forever, that's not true. It could change. They're only courts. Let's see, next item that we have, 147. Resolution number 147. This is the purchase of 416 Pacific Avenue, Unit D.
start? Or does Scott have to say something?
Yep, go right ahead.
Thanks, Scott. I'm not opposed to this purchase. I am concerned with the pattern of the city paying above market prices for free market units. I believe that happened with the unit that we recently resold at Snowmass. And the data that I've seen at least is demonstrating that we're doing it again here. You know, we're paying a significant premium to the average price per square foot recently paid at this complex. I'm not sure I understand it. I mean, are we as the city the suckers that will pay more than anyone else? You know, why is it that we are top ticking the market so significantly?
I'm going to interject there real quick. So there's a lot of assumptions in what you said, and if you have data to bring forward to us, that would be really helpful, and that's something you could have provided to staff before this evening to take a look at while we were in those negotiations. It is a back and forth process. There are other bidders in this project than us on the one that hit the MLS. And we do require our broker to provide us that comparable options. I'd request the same thing on the Snowmass unit because that was not what our data showed with our broker on that purchase price. And as the council will recall, you authorized us selling that back, of which there's a $100,000 profit, no, $60,000 profit back after we had made the repairs. So I just have to say, Councilor Guth, there's a lot of comments that you're making that are not, are very presumptuous tonight, and this is pretty upsetting that you're approaching it that way rather than a place of curiosity and collaboration with staff.
Well, I apologize for being presumptuous. I am curious, and I want to make sure that the interests of myself and the rest of the citizens of Aspen are protected and that we are being responsible with taxpayer money. That's my only interest. And I'm not accusing anyone of doing anything wrong. And again, I'm supportive of this purchase. I'm fine with this I think it's a much better purchase, to be frank, than the Snowmass one. Let's focus on Alpine Grove, not Snowmass, though, because you're right, I don't have the data in front of me for Snowmass like I do for Alpine Grove. But this Alpine Grove price per square foot contract, the one, is this D, or is that the one that we already own? Unit D?
D is the one that we are presenting to you tonight.
Okay, so that's $1,638 per square foot.
That's correct.
Scott, I believe you received this same email from Peter Grenny, which had all this data pretty nicely tabled. There was one other sale, July of last year, that the city also purchased, Unit F, at $1,596 per square foot. And then the next highest price was by the Art Museum at $1,442 per square foot. It's a pretty significant premium, and I'm curious about it.
So I'm not aware of those other units that Mr. Rennie brought up. When these units come to us, we ask for comparables for recent sales and current active listings, and we compare to that. I don't find it useful in a rapidly growing market to compare to 1, 2, and 3-year-old, even 4-year-old deals, which is what Mr. Grenny's doing. It's not useful. I mean, the market's growing 20, 30% a year. It's interesting information, but in my trying to do my best job for you, when I hear of a listing, I do try to negotiate it down. So this deal, the asking price was $1,195,000. I heard that there were 2 other backup offers, but we offered $1,100,000. The seller came back and asked for another $25,000, and that's how we got to $1,125,000. For me, I compared it to what we paid a year ago for Unit F, and it's comparable. The difference between the 2 units and other units that are sold out there, this unit doesn't need any work. It needs very little work, and it's furnished. That's why I thought this was a good deal for you guys to either approve or not approve.
Yeah, I'm not, thank you, Scott. I'm not gonna, oppose this, but it is something I want to keep an eye on, that we are not, continually being the top ticker of the market as the city of Aspen. So, as we approach other 505 purchases, I would like you to keep that in mind, please.
And I will, and I do. And I'll just say that our instructions to our broker right now, kind of for the last 2 years, is bring us free market, small, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom units below 2.5 million, which sounds kind of crazy, but that's where the market is right now. I'm looking at 9 active listings right now in that price range, below 2.5. And we are paying $1,638 a square foot. The average price is $2,852 a square foot.
I imagine that includes non-ABC units.
It does. It includes units within the UBC, or or urban.
GB.
UGB. Yeah.
Got too many acronyms around here.
I know.
Thanks, Scott.
And then comparing to recent solds with those same criteria. And there are 1, 2, just 2 other units in the ABC, but all with similar criteria sold within the last year. The average price per square foot is $1,709, and we're paying $1,638 furnished. My recommendation is it's a good deal.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Are we doing all cash purchases, or are we taking out loans?
We're doing all cash.
Okay.
Until we run out of cash.
No, hopefully
Then we'll
we
do
never
some
run out of
loans.
cash, but obviously that's structurally significant and when the mortgage rates are so high. Thank you.
This would be a rental unit to a city employee?
We would rent it or sell it, I believe.
We haven't made that determination. We're going to wait and see what happens with the units at Burlingame that the city purchased and what that applicant pool looks like to make a decision about rental versus ownership. But it will only be occupied by a full-time City of Aspen employee. We've used other units at this particular development as transitional units. So new employees who are landing from out of the area, a place for them to land for 6 months to a year while they determine their next steps in housing with the difficulty it is in locating it. So particularly if this being a furnished unit, it's probably going to start out as a landing zone for a new employee while we're focusing the Burlingame units and their sale on those first priority to those with 30-minute response time requirements.
One follow-up to that.
What is the health of the HOA for cap reserves for
Well, we've owned units out there for 4 or 5 years.
We've owned units out there since 2016, I believe, because it's actually before I arrived that they had just purchased some. And so we keep pretty close track of it with the asset team. We haven't seen anything in the forecasting that makes us concerned.
And one of the concerns for the Snowmass Village unit was the huge increase in insurance. What is the status of that at this?
Well, that was part of the HOA expenses, insurance, also rather large capital repairs. So after we bought it, we found that there was going to be a pretty good capital assessment.
At this time, the property is insured properly by the HOA. There's a big difference between this and the Snowmass unit. The Snowmass unit, HOA had multiple units with wood-burning fireplaces in them, which increases the fire risk in the insurance rating.
The only other comment that I have on it is, it seems like previously when we had real estate purchases like this, it would come before council and executive session, and I don't recall seeing this until it was on a consent calendar.
Right, we've
with a
been
time
directed to
crunch.
bring them forward. That we received direction 2 years ago to find these units and bring them forward. We weren't gonna call a special meeting for something that had fit the pro forma in a neighborhood you had already authorized other purchases in. It seemed very consistent with your past approvals that we didn't feel like that step was necessary to make that request. If council wants us to bring every one of these to executive session first, let us know. We'll probably have to call special meetings, but we can do it.
And what was the timeframe between when you saw it was offered and when you got a contract contingent upon city council approval?
I'm sorry, what,
Our
I'm
bid-
wondering
our
what
first
the-
bid, we had our first bid in within less than a day.
yeah. And they gave us 30 days to bring it to council for approval.
So it was about 30 days ago.
Yeah,
So it was pretty fast
31
track.
days.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Scott.
Bill, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. Sarah, you mentioned that you were still determining whether the unit would be sold or rented. When we're selling a unit that we purchase on the free market to a city employee, do we put a deed restriction on it?
Yes, a deed restriction tighter than APSHA's deed restriction.
Tying it to an APSHA category?
No. So we utilize APSHA categories in determining purchase prices, but we do look at the one key difference, and that is that the unit is tied into your employment. And so therefore, there might be certain assets that are not accessible during your time of employment, such as certain types of tax-advantaged retirement accounts that we'll look at differently than how APSHA looks at them. Because APSHA's looking at it as if you live there for the rest of your life under the current regulations. We don't necessarily think that, we know that's not likely the case, that we would have an employee who becomes deceased while working for us. We recognize that they're more likely going to move out of the community. And therefore, those assets need to be available for that relocation out of the community.
So that employee must sell it to another City of Aspen employee, in other
Oh, they have to
words,
sell it back to the city.
back to the city.
And then we do not allow an employee-to-employee brokerage. We require all of that to go through a selection process that we administer internally under some clear rules about how eligibility is determined and how priority is determined.
Okay, and two follow-up questions on that. Who pays the HOA dues and assessments in a situation like this, especially where it's in a hybrid mixed-use and affordable development?
In this particular case, under the ownership model, that responsibility is the owner. So this, in here, if we're renting the unit, the city has it. However, we look at that in our determination of the rental rates, about what percentage of that should be subsidized by the city versus the individual occupant. And then other times, if we sell the unit with that deed restriction, that full liability goes over to the resident, the employee that purchased it. The one thing that we do look at in these hybrid locations is we typically have open communication about assessments and how those assessments compare to what their capital reserve caps are in their deed restriction. So if the assessments are routinely exceeding the capital improvement and capital maintenance cap that is in the deed restriction, we'll open that back up for conversation about, do we need to adjust that cap, or do we need to be a cash participant and paying that assessment depending upon what it's for. So if it's for amenities rather than basic life safety, we'll treat them differently.
Got it. And what happens if we as the city decide to sell one of these units, like we just did with the Snowmass one? Does that deed restriction then need to be removed from the property?
The way the deed restriction runs, it runs to the city of Aspen only for a city of Aspen employee. So it's not a perpetual deed restriction. It's renewed with each transaction. Because I could at one point have a Category 4 employee in there, and the next time I have a Category 2. So I constantly need to update that deed restriction to reflect what is the appropriate purchase price for that general AMI category. The council, if it chose to sell property at that time, has the option to place a perpetual deed restriction to itself or to APSHA. As a condition of that sale, it would just be something we want to be clear about and set that deed restriction prior to putting it onto the market. That's clear, and the council should expect a loss, removing that free market component to it. As you recall, council's direction is for us to, for the community, look at buy-down options as well. We have looked at that at a higher scale, so looking at whole buildings rather than individual units. And the council will need to provide some direction, I think, on that here in 2024 around priority.
Of Alpine Grove, which I will support tonight, but I do not support ownership or sale of this unit to a City of Aspen employee. I'd much prefer you to keep them as rentals. Thanks. Anyone else have anything on 147? I'm not sure the correct format to make a motion, but I'd like to pull out 83 and 146 and then vote on the rest. Can anyone give me some guidance on how to?
Yep.
That right?
I'll ask for a motion for resolution number 83 and resolution number 146. I don't mind doing them together. Do you want me to do them separately?
No, together is fine.
Not you.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I think we want to,
Was looking
Jim
your way,
didn't
but-
pop on, but I'm going to guess he's going to want them separately. Still can't hear him, but
Just put up a
Louisa,
one or a two?
Louisa's here telling me they need to be separate
He
as
said
well.
separate.
Oh,
Here we
man.
go.
The C's.
Got it. Well done. Yeah. Sounds like.
He blinked once.
All right. So let's take a motion. If somebody wants to make a motion for resolution number 83.
I'll make a motion for resolution number 83, series of 2023.
Are you making that motion?
He made it.
To approve or deny?
I guess I'll make a motion to approve it.
To approve.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
You're right. Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying.
Yeah,
I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
It's a motion to approve, so it's in the it's in the affirmative. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? For me, this is a $60,000 contract running through the end of the year. I'm going to support it. No further discussion. Can we have a roll call vote for resolution number 83?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
No.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
No.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. And now we can take a motion for resolution number 146.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 146.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Once again, I'm going to support this evening. While this contract is for a larger dollar amount, these are the necessary documents that need to be filed and the work that needs to continue on this in order for us to keep moving forward. I am pro-housing in our community. I represent the members of my community that share that same sentiment, and I will be continuing to try to get as much affordable housing in the near term as I can, and I see this as a way to get that happening without delay. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call vote for resolution number 146, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes, for more housing as soon as possible.
Counselor Guth?
No.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
No.
Mayor Tory?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the remainder of the items on the consent calendar this evening.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Further discussion. Further discussion from me, again. You know, I respect some of the people that speak to affordable housing with an eye on efficiency and appropriateness. I find it really difficult, though, when we talk to people and they say two things. One, don't build the lumberyard, and two, don't buy other units. We have identified in our community that one of the non-development build opportunities are things that we want to take advantage of. But when we get emails or comments from people that are against all action around affordable housing, I continue to find it hard to believe that people are actually for affordable housing that are talking in that way. Again, I am elected by my community to represent the best interest and the majority interest of my community, and so I will continue to do that. Resolution number 147 falls into that category as well. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote for the remainder of the consent calendar, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
I'm a yes. Thank you for all that extended consent calendar discussion. Perhaps we should take that section out of our agenda and make it all non-consent. Thank you, guys. For the viewing public, as well as those that are in the room for more items, it is 7 o'clock, which is typically a time for us to take a dinner break. However, I'm going to ask this council to move forward with the notice of call-up.
Should be quick, I hope.
Darn, you said it. And then and maybe first reading, but that could drag us. Let's just take them one at a time. This is a notice of call-up for 820 East Cooper Avenue as a conceptual major development temporary relocation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, Kirsten Armstrong, Historic Preservation Planner with Community Development. May I share my screen?
I would love for you to share your screen.
Beautiful, thank you. Okay. So this is to notify City Council of the Historic Preservation Commission's adoption of a resolution approving with conditions a land use application for conceptual major development at 820 East Cooper Avenue. And this includes relocation, a setback variation, and a recommendation to City Council for TDRs, and this last bit will be presented to Council at a later date. For a little context, the primary structure is a simple Aspen Victorian designated miner's cottage constructed pre-1890 on a 2,999 square foot lot in the residential multifamily zone district. So if you compare the aerial on the left, and you'll see 820 East Cooper outlined in red, and the 1904 Sanborn map on the bottom right, also outlined in red, you'll see that it retains its historic form and placement, with the exception of two small non-historic additions on the rear here and then over here. So the approved application proposed the temporary relocation of the historic resource to excavate a full basement, the demolition of a non-historic addition on the rear elevation, and the construction of a new one-story connecting element and a two-story addition on the rear. So we have the elevations here for context. So this is the south street-facing elevation, the east elevation, the rear north, and the west. So during review of this request, HPC had to balance the allowable floor area on this small lot with best preservation outcomes. And this consideration is one of many things that the Historic Preservation Design Guidelines were weighed against. Regarding the design review of the proposed addition, HPC found that the proposed addition was adequately a product of its own time while providing reference to the historic resource. And it was also found that the addition was adequately deferential to the historic resource. And a compromise was made on providing a 10-foot connector due to site constraints. Regarding the relocation, HPC further found that the criteria were met for relocation, and the necessary letter from an engineer determining that the historic resource can withstand this relocation and a financial assurance of $30,000 are conditioned within the resolution. And then regarding the setback variation, so the historic house at 820 East Cooper Avenue is currently located 4 feet, 5.5 inches from the west property's side yard, from the west property line, excuse me. And this is where 5 feet is required by underlying zoning. So the project will maintain the historic resources historic location, and they are asking for a setback reduction of 6.5 inches. And this is because when relocation is triggered, setback variations need to be granted to return the historic resource to its original location if that location is considered a non-compliant according to the underlying zone district. So HPC found that the criteria was met for the setback variation as well. So staff's recommendation is to uphold HPC's decision as reflected in HPC Resolution Number 11, Series of 2023. Thank you, and let me know if you have any questions.
Questions?
You're looking at me for
Unrelated.
questions.
I just have questions for you, but it's unrelated to like what we're looking at here. I have questions about this, kind of redevelopment stuff, but at another time.
Those I might be able to answer.
No, it's at another time.
Yes.
At another time. Council members, any questions?
No, my only comment is that it's only 3 people that were able to review this at HPC.
We did have a number of conflicts on this one.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, it was
5-0
5-0 vote.
That was
Sorry.
a 3-0 vote.
It was a continued application. The first meeting, there were only 3 that were able to. Thank you, Sarah. The second meeting had 5.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, you're not getting a lot out of us, so I don't see any motion for a call-up on this property. We appreciate HPC and their oversight and support their action on this project.
Thank you.
Nice project, thanks.
Council members, it is 10 minutes after 7. What is your pleasure? Shall we take the first reading of the St. Regis or take a quick dinner break now?
Staff has prepared a brief first reading presentation for what that's worth.
Brief?
Brief.
Okay, we're staying. Great. The next item for us then is a first reading. This is ordinance number 18, first reading for the St. Regis, minor amendment to plan development for project review, commercial design review, and growth management review. A reminder that this is first reading, an opportunity for us to get questions or more information requests. At this time, I would entertain a motion to read ordinance number 18.
I'll make a motion to read ordinance number 18.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote for reading of ordinance number 18?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes.
Ordinance number 18, series of 2023, an ordinance of the Aspen City Council approving a minor amendment to a plan development for project review, growth management review, and commercial design review to accommodate seasonal structures for the installation of renewable energy equipment and a fence height variance at 315 East Dean Street, legally described as a hotel unit and commercial unit Aspen Residence Club and hotel condominium map according to the plat recorded January 21st, 2005 in Plat Book 71 at page 86 as reception number 506327 and as defined and described in the declaration and plan of the club ownership for Aspen Residence Club and Hotel Condominium recorded January 21st, 2005, as reception number 506236, County of Pitkin, State of Colorado.
Thank you.
All right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Kevin Reyes, planner with Community Development. To my right is my colleague Haley Hart, and to my left is Philip Sapino.
Confirm that.
I had to make sure that we all understood. This evening, we're here tonight to just go over first reading of an application from the St. Regis. They're requesting the reviews listed on the screen. That includes plan development, minor amendment for project review, growth management review, and commercial design review. Because this is first reading, we're going to be very brief with our presentation, just go over what the request is, a little bit about what's on the site. And then if there are any questions, we're happy to write those down and get those answered at second reading, which we're requesting for October 30th. So the request this evening comes in three parts. The first part is to erect 3 seasonal structures for up to 150 days each on the property. And what I want to point out here is that these seasonal structures are different than most requests that council reviews. Usually seasonal structure, temporary structure requests come as temporary use requests, which is usually a one-off sort of ad hoc request that is granted for between 1 to 10 years. In this instance, this is requested as a plan development amendment. And so what that means is pending council approval, these ability to erect temporary structures at the St. Regis will be memorialized as part of the PD. So they will not need to come back to council to request this in future years. They simply need to obtain a building permit each year that these structures go up. So I want to make sure that's clear. The second part of the request is in conjunction with the seasonal uses, the applicant is proposing to install an assortment of renewable energy equipment on the property. And this is to help offset the anticipated energy load that is going to be required to heat these structures in the winter months. So we'll discuss that in more detail at second reading. And then lastly, the applicant is requesting a variation to memorialize a fence that was erected without a permit and which does not meet the height standards required pursuant to underlying zoning. So I'll just briefly show the site conditions so we're all familiar with the site. I'll go over staff's recommendation related to the seasonal structures and then hand it off to my colleague Haley who will describe the fence height variance. So this is a St. Regis. This is the footprint of the site. It's about 3 acres in size. It's improved with 179 hotel rooms, 25 timeshare units. It's got an assortment of ancillary improvements, spas, ballrooms, conference rooms. So it's quite a large site. And the site plan here, it's a little bit hard to read, but it's more or less shows the footprint of the resort. And the footprints that are popping up on the screen show where the seasonal structures are proposed. So you can see these are all within the confines of the resort. As I said, there are 3 structures proposed, each for up to 150 days per year, and the dimensions are on the right there. This is also included in the memo in the packet as well. Staff is generally supportive of these structures. Because they're within the confines of the resort, they're behind 4-story tall prominent walls. So commercial design review is not much of an issue, as these cannot be seen from the surrounding right-of-way. We're also supportive because these types of uses that you would expect in the Lodge Zone District, such as weddings, corporate retreats, and other sort of one-off events are what are proposed in these structures. And this is what is integral to the function of a lodge. So we don't anticipate significant employee generation from these structures. We do have some conditions in the ordinance surrounding affordable housing mitigation, which I'm again happy to go over in more depth at second reading. But with that said, we're generally supportive, and of course, along with this, we support the implementation, installation of the renewable energy equipment as well. So with that, I'll hand it over to Haley to discuss the fence height variation.
So the second component of the request by the St. Regis is to install and maintain fencing, some of which was built without a permit that exceeds the height limitations as required per underlining zoning along Monarch Street and Juniata Street to deter animal and human trespass. Per the land use code, fences located between buildings and streets shall be no taller than 42 inches in height. Fences may be 6 feet high when located on a non-street facing side or rear yard setback, and it also must be fully recessed behind the vertical plane of the building's facade, which is closest to the street. The current locations of the request would only allow the fence to be built as 42 inches in height per underlining zoning, as the the fence is street facing. The applicant seeks a variation from this standard to erect and maintain the fencing ranging in height from about 6 feet to 10 feet along these two streets. And the image on the right is the summary of the request of fence and gate heights along the streets. And the image on the left shows the fencing that was erected compared to the existing gate and retaining wall height. Staff would recommend that the fences be no greater than 48 inches, which is actually the building code allowance, because there is a pool as you go beyond the gate and the retention wall. So per building code, 48 inches would be allowable for this location. So staff recommends City Council approve Ordinance 18, Series of 2023 on first reading and set a public hearing for second reading on October 30th, 2023. And at this time, we'd like to ask Council if there's any questions that you'd like for staff to review and respond to at second reading.
Thanks, Haley. Bill?
Thanks, Haley and Kevin. Can you flip back to the fence height images, please? The heights that you're quoting, are those as measured from the sidewalk sides or from the interior side?
From existing grade, so sidewalk side.
Sidewalk side. When were these fences installed without entire permits?
So the right-hand side, the one that's about 6 feet 5 inches, that was installed within the last year. So this came to staff's attention during the winter season. And the gate that's circled and the planter, those are existing. So no alterations have been made to those two items.
The left two boxes? Yeah.
Correct. But the request is to increase the height for those two as well.
They want to bring those up as well to?
That is correct.
4 feet or more. Thanks. And I don't know this for certain, but I'm curious. Is the pool area, outdoor pool area of the St. Regis a public amenity of their original land use approvals?
It is not.
It is not. So that does not need to be made available to the public?
That is correct.
Do they have some other public amenity space as part of their original land use approval?
I don't believe there's public amenity space as part of the approvals.
The approvals predate requirements, uniform requirements for pedestrian amenity provisions.
Got it.
And just a clarifying point, the term pedestrian amenity, public amenity, doesn't necessarily mean it's open to the public. It's simply a way to reduce massing, bulk and mass. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Got it. What I was referring to, which I think you've inferred, is something like what the W has, where the pool has to be made available to the public. I don't know what the correct terminology is for that, but I think it's relevant to the conversation about the fence. To me, whether this is supposed to be something that the public is accessing frequently or not, and clearly the answer is not.
Correct.
That's it for my questions. Thanks.
Which is a departure from history through this very gate. Oh, that's another time. Any other questions at this time? I'll start with Sam.
Yeah, if not approved, would they have to get rid of the fence that they put up without a permit? Or is that staying in place?
So if council were to choose and approve the 48-inch height, which is staff's recommendation, they would need to cut the fence down.
They would?
Correct.
And then I guess a bigger deal for me, do they have any statistics on break-ins from Bear and people?
I know that they have some
Plenty of video.
stories and videos, correct?
Plenty of
Yes, I
video.
don't know about like a statistic, but.
At second reading, the applicant's going to come forward with a presentation, and our understanding is they have some good videos and some photos, maybe some numbers on break-ins as well.
And I'm sure they could gather some analytics on that.
Yeah,
for second reading.
I think that'd be important to know for something like a variation. Is that something, I don't want to ask in a dumb way, is that something staff takes into consideration? Because before you answer, but from my experience, staff comes off to me as very black and white when it comes to these sort of things, and I never really find when staff grants much when it comes to variations on something that is like math.
Yeah. Staff's position on variations reflects the language and requirements in the land use code, and we apply it uniformly with every application that we receive. So if that's interpreted as being black and white, it's because frequently the land use code standards are black and white.
Do you know of any like precedent where someone else asked for a fence because of break-ins or bear break-ins as well?
I'm not familiar with a specific request related to pool or amenity access management and wildlife control.
Okay, if you could find that, that'd be valuable information for me.
We look forward to the applicant's presentation. We actually think the videos might be highly entertaining.
Highly irritating.
Highly entertaining.
Entertaining.
Yeah, bears swimming in hot
Tori in a
tubs.
bear suit poaching the pool.
How many years do you keep these videos for?
And I assume this will come in staff presentation. I actually walked by this area because of this, and I noticed the gates are not, they're not locked, they're not like key carded. So I found that kind of interesting, not for bears necessarily, but anyone can walk in even if there was a fence. So I would also be curious if they plan on key carding or making it more difficult to walk in too, because that would, yeah, they're nodding their head in the back, but like,
Yes,
yeah.
we
it
were
would-
just
Cards are
told,
coming.
It would all make more sense, and yeah, I look forward to second reading as far as whether this is worthy of a variation.
Yeah, you don't need a key card, you can just climb right around it. Any other further questions for second reading, Ward?
Yeah, my concern is with the fence, and we recently had another question of requesting a variance in fence height. And I want to be consistent, so my concern is with the fence height variance. And this is the Ritz, the property formerly known as the Ritz.
John, anything for second reading?
No, I'll make a motion.
Hang on, give me a moment. I was interested in the usage of the dome. And I will want more information around the affordable housing mitigation calculations, current mitigation, that kind of thing for second reading. I would be interested in what other design alternatives, specifically related to the from grade height measurement of a fence that's 10 feet tall. And then I'd be a little bit more interested to have, get some more information about the solar, the batteries, the integration with that. What I read was, it goes in the garage, it's related to EV charging, so I just want to know a little bit more about that. That's an exciting part of the project. I think that's it for me.
With respect to the affordable housing mitigation sort of information request, the staff memo outlines sort of past generation and mitigation requirements, some of the history of mitigation for the development with respect specifically to some off-site affordable housing locations. What specifically would you be looking for in addition to the sort of current state of things and the past history of generation and mitigation for the site.
I guess it's in a more global conversation. In the packet, it refers to some off-site mitigation units that they owned, that they won't be owning or don't own anymore. I want to know, it's not just specific to this, but just more information around that and how that factors into the employee mitigation or generation that we measure for these temporary structures.
I'm also concerned with the mitigation for the construction was for 60%, and with some expiring deed restrictions, it falls to 21%. So that's a concern of mine.
Okay, John.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 18
On first reading
on first reading. Thanks.
and set a public hearing for October 30th, 2020.
And set a public hearing for October 30th, 2023.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Just thank you to the applicants for being here as well. I don't know if you wanted comment tonight. I don't think it's really necessary, so we can wait till second reading. Thank you very much. Could we have a roll call vote then for ordinance number 18 on first reading?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rhodes?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
I'm a yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good.
And Mayor Tory, for council's scheduling consideration, staff has prepared a brief presentation for second reading on the building IQ ordinance.
Okay, then.
I see where this is going.
Yes, I do too. We will move into our public hearing this evening, which is ordinance number 16. Building IQ ordinance amendments, second reading. No, Jim.
We're pretty sure his computer had a catastrophic failure tonight. I'm shocked, actually, that the video is still working.
I was gonna say, couldn't we had audio and not video? Jeez.
Is he sick? Is that why?
No.
Mayor Tory, do you mind if staff shares our screen?
Please.
Thank you.
I don't know it, Jim.
It was just testing.
Okay.
He said he would text me if there's important things for me to say on his behalf.
Okay.
Cool. Hello again. I'm Claire McLaughlin, Sustainability Administrator with the Environmental Health and Sustainability Team. We're here tonight for the second reading of the Building IQ Ordinance Amendment, and the request of council tonight is to approve the ordinance on second reading. In this brief presentation, I will describe the proposed amendments for the Building IQ Ordinance and then answer any of your questions. So, as you remember from the first reading a couple weeks ago, the Building Performance Standards Stakeholder Committee has requested additional data to help inform their input on the Building Performance Standard guidelines. To respond to stakeholders' request for additional data, the request of council is to amend the Building IQ Ordinance to allow for the time necessary to gather that additional information so that they can really give meaningful stakeholder input.
Specifically, the request of council tonight is to make two small edits to the Building IQ ordinance. The first is to remove the date by which staff brings the guidelines to council. And this will give stakeholders the necessary time they need to consider the additional local data we're presenting them. And the second is to clarify how the guidelines will be adopted. And staff recommends that the guidelines be adopted by ordinance, and this gives council the final say on the guidelines. And these changes are captured in ordinance number 16, series of 2023, which is the request of council to pass on second reading. Thanks.
Is the proposed language that you just shared on the slide, is that the only change, the only amendment that's proposed?
Yes.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions at this time? It is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing portion. Any immediate questions? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public that wish to comment this evening on ordinance number 16, the Building IQ ordinance amendments, please make yourself known. I'm looking online. And looking in room, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council table. Council members, if there's any questions or further information you like, please do so. If not, we can take a motion.
I just have a comment. I think we asked you to speed up, now you're asking to slow down, so it's ironic.
Then I would take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 16, series of 2023, Building IQ ordinance amendment, second reading.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Sure, Bill.
I know I've said this ad nauseum, but I wish I could be an advocate of this. I cannot support any additional work on Building IQ until I have clarity of what the end game is. I cannot support this tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. No further comments. Could we have a roll call vote for ordinance number 16, Building IQ ordinance amendments on the second reading?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
No.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Make a motion.
Thanks,
to go
Philip.
into
Thanks, Claire.
executive session.
We need to read, Luisa, are you going to read citation?
Yes,
Thank you.
I am. Mr. Mayor and council has requested that it go into an executive session pursuant to CRS 246402-4F. Personnel, the specific topic is the city manager's review. If council votes to go into executive session, the executive session will be recorded and the recording maintained by the clerk for a period of not less than 90 days.
So now, I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
We have a motion for executive session and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote for going into executive session?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. For the viewing public, we will be going into executive session. We will not be continuing any council business afterwards this evening, so we will be moving downstairs for executive session, and then we will be doing adjournment in that meeting room as well. Thank you so much to Grassroots. Thank you to the public that have viewed tonight. If you have any further comments for us, you can always email us at City Hall or get in touch with any one of us. We are always happy to talk with the public. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.